Welcome back. This is lesson number 4. So the way you always want to start doing research, the country conditions research, is by asking the right research questions. In this lesson, I'll teach you how to do that. And I'll close by providing a concrete example, which is from a anonymized and redacted case I worked on recently. I've noticed that a number of attorneys and really NGOs that work with asylum seekers, they go, well, I have this new applicant from, say, El Salvador. I have his or her declaration. It's, let's say, a case about indigenous persecution. I've already had a bunch of those in the past, so I'll just get a bunch of stuff about El Salvador, human rights abuses, violence generally, and abuses against the indigenous population. I might have that from a past database. I might have that from a past case. And I'll just put that together, maybe just slightly change it, and I'll send it off. So I've seen a number of attorneys do this. I've honestly seen experts do this, and it may be fine. It may be fine to reuse old cases and old templates. But I've also seen that this kind of approach has a tendency to miss crucial ways in which the application can be made strong in a very detailed and individualized way. And I've also noticed that if you are working with an expert and they write what's clearly a generic report, these kinds of reports have been seen as biased by adjudicators. So that's really something to look out for if you're working with experts. You always want them to tailor their reports to your individual client. I've also heard from immigration judges directly that they don't like getting phone books of documents with no direct connection to the individual applicant and with no roadmap on how to use the documents to see if it applies to the individual circumstances of the applicant. A lack of clarity, a lack of individuality really makes it harder for judges to make a favorable decision. So that's something kind of they really that really had me thinking, and I think and with that I saw the value of really working in a very tailored manner. So to avoid issues like these, to avoid this kind of approach, my proposal is that for any asylum case you're working on, there are 3 steps you can take. There are 3 elements or 3 steps you can take to formulate the right questions. And I think you should do this for every case. First of all, you want to review the client's claims and declaration carefully to identify the key statements related to his or her claims for asylum, statements about country of origin, statements about their background. Alternatively, you can consult the attorney's legal theory if that's already formulated. But if it isn't, I think that developing a legal theory can be done by following these steps. And this is, again, the first step. The second step is to summarize and write these claims down, or copy paste them. If it's already in a document, copy paste them into a separate document, preferably as bullet points that you can check off as you do your research. The third step, for each statement or claim that you wrote down and identified, formulate questions using the following general templates. Is statement or claim X supported by any evidence? That is, any COI evidence. Are there any sources that show the type of widespread forms or acts of persecution the client or applicant describes in his or her declaration? Does the country condition evidence contradict any of the client's statements or claims? And if it does, are there any mitigating factors? If you follow these, I can promise you that you're setting yourself up for success, and the adjudicators will really love you for it. Ideally, in cases that I've worked on that have really been the best and the most well-crafted, the attorney and I have kind of co-developed the legal theory or questions. So the attorney and I would, for example, the attorney would have an initial theory and then ask me what I thought in terms of supporting COI. And even if it's a country that I don't know well, it takes me usually half an hour to an hour of work to tell the attorney that the theory is solid at face value, or if it needs different questions, maybe more questions, less questions, different phrasings, more precise phrasings, more precise terms, and so on. So ideally, really, the theory and the questions is something that's best developed as a two-way street between the attorney and the researcher. But in any case, the general template questions above are a necessary start. So this might sound a little abstract. You might ask, how do you actually do this? Well, let me give you an example of how I do it. J from Cameroon is the case I'll be using throughout the training to show you how all the steps can be followed in practice. I've followed the steps in these cases, and I hope you'll find the examples I give you useful, and I hope they'll give you a sense of how you can actually apply this. So again, Jay is from Cameroon. I got his declaration, and I got the attorney's legal theory when I agreed to help with this case. After reviewing the declaration, I could summarize the key elements and write them down. And here are a few of these elements that I'll be using throughout the training. Jay states in his declaration that he suffered persecution in the form of imprisonment, beatings, and torture at the hands of the Cameroonian police and military on account of his activities within a political opposition party. His participation includes publicly protesting on several occasions. If returned to Cameroon, Jay believes that he will again be detained and tortured for his prior activism. Okay, so that's the review I did. This review, and I really have what I need in the form of bullet points. This allows me to formulate the questions that will guide the steps, the subsequent steps I'll need to take to answer them. So these are the questions that I formulated and that I wrote down. What is the political opposition party to which Jay belongs? What are its objectives? Are there evidence of abuses that the party has committed against others? What is the Cameroonian government's record on abuses in political opposition, in particular the client's opposition party? Applicant mentions participating in protests on certain dates, being detained and beaten. What happened? Is there evidence of widespread excessive force, detention, violence by the police against protesters? These are just some examples. I had more, but I didn't want to fill this page up with examples. I think these should be sufficient to get my point across. Which is, I hope you can see that I really have a lot to work with already. And this will really help me find the information I need to corroborate Jay's statements. So the question now is, what do I do next? Okay, so you can now move on to the next lesson to find out.